coming back to you live from the H2 Show studios. I thought I was going to be on time. I wasn't on time. I was still 1 minute off based on my phone, but on time based on the soundboard that I was looking at. So apologies for the 1 minute delay. Coming at you on, well, let's just talk about the riddle of the day from yesterday. So the riddle of the day yesterday, we hit on a lot of things. I'm coming in a shell. I'm coming from the ocean. I might be a little creamy. I might be red. Flow. So what is today? Today is National Clam Chowder Day, and that was the answer for the riddle, was clam chowder. Clam chowder is usually either a creamy sauce or it could be made with tomatoes, depending on who makes it. Let me look right here. I love New England clam chowder. That's my favorite. Used to be my favorite back when they would do the chunky, the Campbell's chunky soup. I love the commercial with Donovan McNabb and his fake mom. I don't think that was his real mom. I think it was his fake mom. The Manhattan clam chowder is the one that uses tomatoes. The origin of the word chowder is up for debate. The French word cauldron is chaudire, and the English word jouter means fish peddler. Both are on the hook for possible origins. That's pretty funny. Both are on the hook. In other news, Bitcoin has dropped down below 90,000. So if you're waiting for an entry point, maybe we're getting close. There's been a lot of liquidity coming out of the market with some uncertainty. Reports are basically saying this is consolidation from what I can read, but it does make you nervous when it drops from 108,000 maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago back down to 88,000 today. What I would say is make good decisions, be reasonable, don't panic as you're looking at your stock market portfolio. I think better days are ahead for us in the economy, but I do think there's going to be some tightening of the purse strings in a lot of companies for a little bit, and that's what's going to happen. All right, so enough of that. Let's get to it. I'm going to hit you with the STAR method right off the bat here because I promised it yesterday and I should have delivered it yesterday, so we're going to deliver it this morning. What is the STAR method and why would I use it in an interview? So it's really a way to organize your thoughts. A lot of interviewers these days are going to what's called behavior-based interviews. It's not so much about do you know what this job implies, but I want you to tell me about times in your life where you made a decision based on the facts, how that decision had impact on the goal, and then what was the final result of that. So the way it works is you set up a situation for the question. You talk about the goal or the task that was needed to be accomplished. You tell about the actions you took and the results that were coming out of that. And as I showed you, 60% is about the actions that you took because you're trying to explain to them the way you think and the behaviors that you bring to the team that you're on. So to give you an example, I've wrote a question, describe a time when you faced a problem and how you designed a process to solve it. So you could be getting interviewed from anyone about maybe process management, how you're going to come in, and they need somebody to come in and fix a problem once and for all and establish some parameters in a process that's consistent and repeatable and sustainable. Well, this would be a question they may ask you as a behavioral learning they're trying to take out of that. So if I was being interviewed, ask that question, describe a problem and a time you designed a process to solve it. I would set the situation. Situation is I'm coaching U10 soccer. That's another thing that's important to know. You can use personal stories. It does not always have to be your business experience that leads to their understanding of how you behave. But I'm coaching U10 soccer. I noticed during all these games, frequently we were running out of energy late in the game. My team would tire out and they couldn't complete the shot or make the last run to score goals. So with that, the goal was to improve their stamina, improve our winning percentage, and get them to a position where they could perform better at the end of games. So what was the action? Well, we took 3 steps, me and the other coach. We sat and we observed where the struggles were coming from. So one of those struggles was inside of the goal, the 18-yard box, we were seeing them miss on the second shot. So kick the ball at the goalie deflects the ball, because a lot of times in U10 soccer, they're not great at picking the ball up or catching the ball. What can we do there? Also, hey, they're running out of energy, and we frequently get beat late in games because they don't get back on defense, or they won't press high enough to try to score goals. So we designed 3 things. First thing we did, we said we're going to do a lot more live scrimmaging. We're going to do less about drills. Early in the season, it's about drills. It's about establishing those skills for them on an individual basis. Later in the season, it's about scrimmaging and learning how to play in a game type environment. To make that more physical, we're going to scrimmage with them. We're going to be in the game and playing against them. And the reason for this is if they can win or hold up against an adult, then any 10-year-old kid is also going to be nothing to them. They're going to be able to stand up to them. And obviously, you're going to adjust how you go as a coach, but you're trying to teach them that even when you're physically outmatched, you can still win the game. Second thing we did was we watched a lot of YouTube videos at the time, and we watched the Mighty Ducks. So in the Mighty Ducks, if you remember, Gordon Bombay was talking about pick up the trash. He dumped the trash on the ice and said, hey, throw these into the net, in hockey, because these are, picking up the garbage goals. And so we did the same thing. We'd roll the ball out to them and have them get the second shot, so they're hitting it first touch into the goal. And what this led to is they were better at finishing those goals. And then finally, and this was the one that I think a lot of our players, even to this day, if you talk to them, would remember, is the hill. So every day after practice, we would run up this hill that they had at the Carroll County Rec Center, and we run up it 10 times. The other coach and I would do that with them. So the reason for all of this, obviously, we closed the gap on their ability to handle physical play. We closed the gap on them being able to get rebounds and shoot goals, and we ultimately closed the stamina gap between them and other players. And so we could drown them by taking them into deep waters and show them, hey, you can take the other player. They're going to be worn out. They're going to have their hands on their hips, or they're going to be down, squatting down, trying to take a break every time the ball goes out of bounds, and you're going to have one more sprint in you. What happened was we ended up only losing 1 game the entire season and won the final. That was the result. Won the final and won the championship for that U10 team off of a goal scored in the last 5 minutes of the game by somebody who was obviously tired, and it was off a deflection. So the result was we got what we wanted. We wanted to teach these kids they could go further and go faster and go longer than the others on the other teams, and they did it. And to this day, one of my core memories of coaching somebody. So there's the STAR method. We did a situation. We talked about a task. We talked about the action we took and the result that we got. And it explains our ability to diagnose a problem and solve that problem in a very organized fashion. And we did that in 6-7 minutes. So you're usually going to have an hour interview. Typically, nowadays, they do panel interviews. You'll have 4 questions from various people, and you'll have, obviously, if you do 4 questions and you can do it in 5 to 6 minutes, then you're at 24 minutes. So you've taken up half. The other half will be your opportunity to ask questions back to them, and then there'll be 5 or 6 minutes for them to set the stage about what the job is early in the questioning. So that is how I have performed in interviews. And typically what I do, if you work internal to a team, you go out and you get those questions, or internal to a company. Sometimes they'll post their questions because they have to for their managers and for their directors, their people managers and directors. Sometimes they'll post those and you have access to them. Take advantage. You got the questions. You can pose any scenario you want for each of those questions, and don't practice it to the point it's a script, but practice it to a point that you know which one of these questions I'm going to answer with what response. And a lot of times they're doing virtual now, so you do have the advantage that you can look at your notes a little bit easier than you can if you go to an interview in person and you have to maintain full eye contact, because I promise you they're looking at a Teams or a Zoom screen, and if they don't have it set to speaker, they're bouncing around looking at their fellow employees, and unless it's the hiring manager, they're probably not tuned into you the whole time. They're probably worried about when they're going to ask their question and other things and maybe taking some notes. So you do have an opportunity. It's okay to look down. It's okay to just, hey, quickly reference back to, all right, that's a great question, and go, okay, yeah, and then set the stage for them. So, all right, with that, let's transition over to the events page and look at this day in history. So this day in history, Pope Pius V excommunicates Queen Elizabeth of England. Interesting. That was in 1570. In 1836, Samuel Colt invents the Colt revolver. I guess there would be no Sam and Dean Winchester without the Colt revolver. So shout out to Samuel Colt. What an awesome TV show. By the way, that really, every time I see a TikTok or a video about Sam and Dean from Supernatural, I think about Sam, my sister, and how excited she'd get every time we talk about anything supernatural related. I think she's seen it 3 or 4 times. In 1837, the electrical printing press is patented by Thomas Davenport. In 1901, J.P. Morgan incorporates the United States Steel Corporation. In 1933, the first aircraft carrier is launched. That was the USS Ranger. Let's see. In 1964, Cassius Clay beats Sonny Liston to become the heavyweight champion. Cassius Clay later became Muhammad Ali when he converted to Islam. In 1986, Corazon Aquino is sworn in as the 11th president of the Philippines. In 1991, the Warsaw Pact is disbanded. It was following the end of the Cold War, and the defense treaty between 8 communist states had lost its purpose. It had been signed in 1955 as an antagonist of NATO. And then in 2004, The Passion of the Christ is released. And with that, we'll say some happy birthdays. So we got 1943, George Harrison. 1949, the nature boy, Ric Flair. We all know we love Ric Flair. In 1965, Carrot Top. In 1971, Sean Astin, the actor who played Rudy. He played Samwise Gamgee in Lord of the Rings, and he played the brother in 51st Dates who was on steroids the whole time, but only lifting 5-pound weights. I love Adam Sandler movies. They're just so ridiculous. In the local birthday scene, I've only got one, and it's Sarah Vaughn. Oh my gosh, Wintigen. I don't know how to pronounce Sarah's last name. Sorry, Jenny. But happy birthday to you. And then I wanted to hit on something just absolutely insane in the culture. So let's transition over there. Okay, so we all know this is coming. At some point, we're going to have to talk about the Diddy case, and I want to get into the details as we learn more. But I can't help but say that it really sounds like this guy is, there's no hope for him. His lawyer yesterday dropped him from the case. Now, there's rumors going on the internet about it being because of necrophilia or necromancy, trying to raise some, sacrificing humans to raise somebody from the dead and all this nonsense. I don't know that any of that is true. But what I do know is this lawyer represented Osama bin Laden. So this lawyer clearly doesn't mind getting down in the dirt and talking about things, but then still chose to drop Diddy as a case. I don't know what that means, but it can't be good. Like, maybe he doesn't have as much money as we think he does. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's a money thing, or maybe this guy's like, I can't even have my name tied to you. This is terrible. So, so Diddy's lawyer drops him. Another thing I wanted to hit on is, are the tariffs working? I'm asking you the question. You tell me. What are the intentions? What are your fears? What's going on out there? How do you feel about it? But I will say it does feel like on the surface that American companies are sitting up and taking notice. There have been some on the automotive space to commit to bringing plants here that were previously going to be in Mexico or overseas. And then in the latest news, Apple has committed to a $500 million investment in U.S. manufacturing, and they plan to hire as many as 20,000 people. And like I say, investing 500 billion. What did I say, million? That's not even close. 500 billion in the U.S. And they cited the tariffs as the reason for this investment. So Tim Cook has said this is one of their largest committed, spend, and seems to be, leaning in the direction that the tariffs are inevitable. So he's got to make the right call and bring the manufacturing home. And then we're seeing other chip manufacturers say the same thing. So I hope it happens for the people to get jobs here in the U.S. Certainly believe that's the right thing to do. I hope it's not just empty words from Apple, as commitments aren't actual checks, which is what it is. But it does seem like the tariffs might be having a positive impact, at least on the investments into the United States. Now, what other things am I missing? What is the downside that's happening out there in the marketplace? I do know, obviously, we've seen the S&P and the Bitcoin and other things kind of take a turn, and there's less positivity in the market side. So obviously, there's an undercurrent that I'm not totally in tune with or in touch with as to the fears that are happening. We've talked about the housing market having a little bit more inventory than expected, with that 9 months of inventory. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's the problem, and that's what's where we're seeing the kind of hangups forthcoming. But and maybe it is inflationary, and maybe that's why some of the inflation has remained. But it's just interesting that how fast companies respond to these pressures. So moving from that to a Doge proposal, but also just a general good idea. So the Doge and the HHS are basically saying that they should force hospitals to publish prices. So let me just tell you, absent Doge, absent anything, how illogical is it that you have to go and ask how much something costs to the doctor? Come on. You walk into an Arby's, you'll look up there. I want a Coke, it's this price. I want a classic roast beef sandwich, it's that price. But I want a value meal, it's this price. And then if I get discounts, they're on my app or they're on my coupon I'm bringing in. Why do I have to go and call around to understand what it's going to cost me to get my knee scanned? Why does it cost you twice as much as it costs the next person to get the same service? It doesn't make sense. So when they say this proposal of like, hey, we're going to make you publish your prices, well, you're darn tootin', you should. I mean, that's ridiculous that we don't have published prices. I should know how much an MRI is going to cost me. I get it if it's surgery, right? Surgery's not every surgery is the same. Get that. But from a diagnostic standpoint, it costs the same for the reagent and the swab for me as it does to the next person if you're coming in and swabbing me for strep throat. I should be able to get some consistent pricing. There are places that do that. They're primarily cash places. That you can go and understand the established number before you decide to take the care. But they're talking about at hospitals, which is not the case. And I talked to a friend of mine from Brazil, and one of the things they do is they tell you, hey, you got a broken arm and we need to do this, this, and this for your broken arm. And you or somebody in your family takes the prescription for those things over to a pharmacy, picks those up, comes back, and then gets the care from there. So it's not $95 for an aspirin, one. Two, you have your choice of pharmacy. So if it's $95 for an aspirin in one place and it's $5 for an aspirin in another, you can make the choice. So my point is this puts healthcare back into the choice of the user of the healthcare and of the service. I can't disagree with that. I think it's the greatest idea, and something that just should already be done. Regardless of political party, I think you get bipartisan support that it'd be easier for us as the user of healthcare to know how much it's going to cost us up front. So I applaud that, and I feel like we're dumb for not doing it already, quite frankly. In other news, let's go back to some technology news. All right, so this one is wild, and I'm not even sure I totally understand it. We talked about um, quantum communication between points and how they had figured out a way to use different wavelengths to basically use quantum entanglement to move information from here to here. Well, as that comes eventually, but as part of just computing power, they're trying to do the same thing where you in a quantum state, it's not yes or no, but it's kind of yes or no at the same time. And because you can use the switches to basically run scenarios really, really rapidly, if you can get to where you're not just using nodes that have a yes or a no, but instead can sort of have this like in between state, you can run scenarios a lot faster. The problem with a quantum computer today is in the accuracy side of things. So they're not stable enough. And so you sometimes get, it says yes, no, and all of a sudden the scenario is just complete junk, or it's like 75% accurate because it's not totally stable in its decision making, which means while you can use that, you can run some scenarios, you can't really trust the output the way you want to. So to make that next intellectual leap, we needed something that where we can have more stability. And Microsoft, in a project they're doing with DARPA, has I guess, discovered, because you don't technically invent a new state of matter because it always existed. We just didn't know about it. With their Majorana 1, they have figured out a way to use a topological superconductor to stabilize the center and get edge protection. That's what I've been told. And essentially, that allows these qubits, is what they're calling it, quantum bits, to be more stable and be more accurate. And the theory is that once you have enough of these and the processing power is where it's at, you can then essentially process all the data that all computers in the entire planet can process on this one drive. So they've made 8 qubits. They need about 1 million. But if this process is repeatable, which they believe it is, you could be at 1 million qubits, and all of a sudden you're processing all of the computing power of the whole planet in one place. And they think that from there you can run these scenarios and you can essentially fast track product development. So, for example, this one that everybody cites, if you wanted to create self-repairing building materials, well, today you would have to find products and chemicals and combine them, and okay, let's put that together. Then you'd have to damage it. Then you'd have to see if it can self-repair. How well did it self-repair? How fast did it self-repair? You run that data, you go and you mix back up some more chemicals, and you come back and say, okay, we're going to do it this way. It's 50% of this, 70% of that, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden we've got this like meshed up thing, and you have to really do product development in the traditional sense. There's less scenario testing you can do. But if all of the thoughts that have ever been thought and all the information that's ever been postulated can be put into this one place, they then can run the scenario testing inside of this computer and essentially come up with 98% of the way there on the first experiment that you run. And so essentially by running experiments digitally and tests digitally, you can do it in sort of an infinite manner. And because this can run billions and billions of computations at the same time, you're in seconds doing what would have taken you years. And so this is supposed to be the intellectual leap forward in the quantum computing, and then it'll be in the quantum communication because obviously you need that data to come in really fast. So crazy discovery, new state of matter, a topological state. So you've got 5, I guess, now: solid, liquid, gas, plasma, and a topological state. So that's some tech news for you. And with that, we're going to transition, because we've already done the star report. We'll go to the verse of the day. So as we always say, we love you. We want the best for you. And we want you to have the best year and the best life you can. I also wanted to come and say something to y'all today that I almost made an excuse this morning. And I thought about this, and I'm not going to be perfect at it. So don't anticipate that I'm going to be perfect at it. But what I would say is, don't make excuses, make choices. So that's going to be, I hope, my life motto, if I can, to remind myself that, for example, I went to bed at 11 o'clock last night. Should have went to bed at 10. I couldn't fall asleep. Really should have went to bed at 8, but beside the point. I was tired this morning, woke up feeling kind of meh, and didn't really want to get up. Well, the excuse would be, well, you know, you can sleep in, da 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 da. But the choice I made was not going to bed on time. So I had to make the choice of powering through because I didn't go to bed on time. So just remember, in life, you can either make a choice or later you're going to have to make an excuse. So try to make the right choice. With that, let's go to the verse of the day. The verse of the day, Proverbs 19:17 from the NIV. Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done. So what is that saying? It's pretty blatant. We are to give to others as unto the Lord. And I'm not saying give every last dime, but if that's what God tells you to do, do it. Because He'll bless you for it, as it says right there. But when you think about things, sometimes we can get hard-hearted, jaded, if you will. And we will give money. Say you give $5 to somebody that's on the street. It happens, right? Somebody's at the stoplight, and you don't believe them. You know they're going to get out of here, and they're going to go get a Mercedes. They're going to put their sign away, and it's in the back seat of their Mercedes, and they're taking advantage of me. What I will say, God gives you the instruction to give, and you give. I don't care if they get in a Mercedes. He's going to bless it because you gave as unto the Lord. And so when you look at other people and you're having these conversations, or you're thinking about them and their intentions, try to think of them as if you were talking to Jesus. And if you think that way, you'll treat them with a lot more respect, a lot more love, and a lot more kindness. And I know there will be times that you will feel like you got taken advantage of. For sure. I'm not saying go sign up for every multi-level marketing scheme and you have to do what they ask you to do. What I'm saying is treat them with the kindness and the love that you would, as if Jesus was standing in front of you. And then if he calls you to give as unto God, and not as the jaded individual that we can all become. Speaking of, I did take a note about multi-level marketing schemes, and this is just my little piece of advice because I've been in 4 or 5 of them. You're 99%, according to the study that somebody published, 99% of them don't make money. Like the people that are in them don't make money. There is the 1% that make money. It is a pyramid scheme in 9 times out of 10, or 99 times out of 100, it sounds like. So what I would say, don't get in there expecting you're going to make millions. Relationships, but it is tough to make a living selling multi-level marketing type stuff. And I'm not going to hate on anyone in particular or whatever, but just either be the 1% because you make all the right choices and you win, and you get out there and you hustle and you sell the product, or maybe don't get involved. So just a little bit of my advice. All right. And now to the last segment of the day, riddle me this for tomorrow. So the riddle me this: I hold magic and wonder, yet I'm not in your hands. I bring dragons and princes to faraway lands. With words I can weave a world bright or quite scary, of witches, of wishes, of creatures most merry. I start with once and may end with delight, or teach you a lesson by the end of the night. Who am I? And with that, I want to say one last thing. Shout out to my friend Katie Bryan. I will post her link to her Instagram. If you're interested in working out next month, she does a Coach Katie's challenge. You pay $10 and then you're in the challenge. So I'll post that as well. I'll be participating. It's a lot of fun, a lot of camaraderie. It's like a 10 to 15 minute workout each day just to get you moving and get you going. And you'll feel stronger by the end of the month. And we do it every other month. If you want to participate, I'll leave that in the comments. And then I will say, we love you. We want the best for you. We want you to be successful. We know that you're going to do great things because you know how to do hard things. And don't make excuses, make choices. We don't say goodbye here. We say see you soon. But